The anime that's put me through the most stomach-churning dread this season hasn't been the dark and dramatic Attack on Titan or the tragic girls doing tragic things series Suka, but instead a humble little original anime with inconsistent production values about an awkward middle school romance, Tsuki ga Kirei. I thought MathWiz's excellent video was gonna make the entirety of my notes on this show's stellar direction redundant, but then episode 6 came along, and with it one of the most quietly brilliant moments in anime this year. At the outset, this sequence seems like it should be exciting and perhaps uplifting, even if it will also involve some nervous energy. While Akane's had some issues with nerves throughout the series, and Azumi is understandably nervous himself about meeting with the publisher he's headed to after interest was shown in his literary competition submission, a mutual gambatte the day prior, charming as all such scenes in this series tend to be, along with a reminder of that intimate moment to start off this scene, seemed to be building towards a next step for each of these characters towards their respective dreams, drawing mutual strength from their relationship as they do so. The gentle, nostalgia-inducing insert track that had been playing as Akane and Azumi were getting ready and sending each other encouragement fades out, as Azumi starts leaving behind the warm tones of the earlier rooms of the building and enters a dull cubicle enclosure, while Akane steps out of the light and into darkness. The first point where I noticed something was off was right here, when everyone in Akane's row was warming up and did a practice start when go was called for the group ahead of them, but she did nothing. You could write that off as her being separate, special even, merely stoic and focused, but the key aspect that sticks out here upon revisiting it is that Chinatsu steps out of that darkness that they'd shared just prior to this, while Akane remains within it. That prior scene was one of emotional vulnerability for both of them, with Akane opening up about being in a relationship with Azumi, the boy Chinatsu had recently told her she was developing a crush on, and Chinatsu having to process and respond to that. The difference is that while Chinatsu was able to move past that, or at the very least momentarily put that turmoil aside, Akane continued to be plagued by it, and is stuck wallowing in the darkness it casts over her. As the runners take their places, Akane is once again somewhat worryingly a step behind. The noise of the crowd fades away, and a comforting silence takes its place. Her unsteady expression settles into a determined and composed one, leading the viewer to believe that perhaps she's found her focus, and that now that the race is actually on, she'll be able to perform at her best. From the crack of the starting pistol and the piece of music whose entry accompanies it, our hopes are dashed, a nervous, unsettled piece that punctuates Chinatsu passing Akane by, an event that has all sorts of worrying implications for what the future may hold. And the clarinet's entrance brings with it a cut back to Azumi and his scene. He's now totally enclosed, with the lines of the cubicle boxing him in from multiple different shots and angles. The uneasy surprise Azumi had briefly shown when he saw this guy's card and that had subtly contributed to this building dread is now given an explanation, as he tells Azumi that he's got no talent, and so naturally writing light novels is the right path forward. The mere fact that he had the drive to write and submit a story while still in middle school means he can pump shit out, so why not get on board with ABC Publishing and pump out shit for their light novel imprint? As a bonus, there's more money in light novels than serious literature anyway, just another nail being pounded into the coffin he's expecting this kid to bury his dreams in. With this sequence over, we cut for a commercial break, and upon our return the mood resulting from these events is immediately set. Akane still languishing in that darkness, Azumi now getting a lecture from his mother as well about the futility of pursuing literature and how nothing good can come of writing. As with my breakdown of a scene from Horo Musco, much of this is stuff that will not stand out or be noticed consciously by most viewers, and it didn't to me. What stuck out instead was the feelings it evoked, and the idea that these scenes were probably worth revisiting in order to find out exactly what about them had done so, because there was definitely something there. Up to this point, the series had done a tremendous job of characterizing this pair, not just giving them friends, interests, goals, families, familial expectations, lives outside of their relationship, but even going so far as to give them little mannerisms, like Azumi's shadowboxing with his light's pull switch whenever he gets excited, given that little bit more added depth and lifelikeness because it matches up with the playfighting his friends engage in with each other. There's a consistency there, a cohesion, a consideration to not simply throw a handful of traits at Azumi and see what sticks, but an awareness of how they all fit together, feeding off of and into each other. It isn't just the fact that these characters feel like fully realized people that adds stakes to these setbacks either. The aspects that flesh them out specifically lend weight to these characters. Akane's relationship with her parents is distinct from hers with her sister, is distinct from hers with Chinatsu and with Takumi, and this failure on her part has implications for each of those. Her Her sister is now questioning whether Akane can juggle a boyfriend and a devotion to track simultaneously. An already somewhat awkward relationship with the clearly infatuated Takumi is further strained by him having to get on her case about her performance, since he's the team captain. And Chinatsu's literal surpassing of Akane is worrisome in light of the building love triangle, and figurative surpassing of Akane within it that might be foreshadowing. Tsuki ga Kirei is often guarded and stilted and drawn out, but in the middle of all of that, it's also very dense with meaning, just in a somewhat indirect manner that requires some digging, not unlike the title of the series itself. While at its face, Tsuki ga Kirei simply means the moon is beautiful, it's also a famous way to say I love you in Japanese. Considering his deep interest in classic literature, I'm sure Azumi is aware of the novelist, Natsume Soseki, who said of this phrase, "Two people in love do not need direct words to convey their feelings." This series demonstrates that anime do not need direct words to convey their feelings or ideas either, which brings me to the topic of craft in general. At points it can feel somewhat silly or unnecessary to point out this Film 101 stuff. Hey guys, the tree symbolizes the barrier between them! But at the same time, a lot of this is so relatively underappreciated that I think looking into it and pointing it out holds legitimate merit. The specific craft in this case is storyboarding, the art of planning out and setting up each shot of a given episode, which is where we get all these things like framing and blocking that can contribute so much to making a given anime a rewarding viewing experience. There's a lot of anime, and also of live-action television for that matter, with incredibly flat, lifeless storyboarding. Simple shot-reverse shot editing for conversations, or an uninteresting layout that serves no purpose beyond allowing us to watch the scene play out. This stuff can be hugely important in elevating a series above simply being good. At its most basic level, dynamic storyboarding can make a scene visually interesting to watch play out, even in scenes with little actual movement, which can obviously be a big help in a medium where movement can sometimes be at a premium. In my mind, there is a stark division between those anime that do and do not have thoughtful, expressive storyboarding. It isn't some kind of be-all end-all where it guarantees greatness or its lack ensures failure, but as these two different dinner conversation scenes from the same series hopefully demonstrate, the basic experience of watching an anime is made so much less dull and tiresome when we're given something to look at. More simple cinematography can work for live action, where a skilled actor is given an opportunity to let their expression do all the conveying, packed with all sorts of intricacies and meaning. But there are very few anime that have the character animation chops to match that. Certainly few that could match it with any sort of consistency. And at the end of the day, this style of face will probably have less potential for conveying as many things through expression as a human one because it's much more simple. The strength of anime as a medium is that you can put the figurative camera anywhere, and so weird and interesting shots like looking through a light bulb can be utilized. The stand around and talk for 18 minutes, burst of movement formula, or some variation is very common for anime, and the ability to make those 18 minutes of relatively static conversation interesting is invaluable. What nearly every great anime will do is go beyond even this, however, and pack legitimate meaning into its storyboarding in addition to just making them interesting to look at. This allows not only for a straightforward increase in the density of ideas a series can pack into its runtime, the volume of them it can throw at you, but it also allows for some ideas that simply couldn't be communicated in any other way, or at least not nearly as effectively. Moments like Akane being at the front of Azumi's mind, or Akane's friends getting between her and Azumi are brilliant. I mean, in the case of the latter, it's setting up one of the central conflicts of the series, the pull between her friends and her romantic relationship, and yet in the context of that moment, the more relevant meaning behind this is in driving home their shyness, showing that the presence of others is preventing them from feeling comfortable enough to open up to each other. And the issue of trying to find a place where they can be alone together also ends up being a prominent element moving forward. Cinema is an art form all its own, a mode of expression that allows things to be conveyed to us where they otherwise couldn't. And I think that as apparent as much of what goes into it can be upon reflection, for those of us who these scenes did reach, those who had that emotional reaction and are wondering why, going back to discover why, and sharing that experience with others is a worthwhile endeavor. If you think this channel is a worthwhile endeavor, then consider supporting my work on Patreon, joining Sam, Izumi69, Remy Goldschmidt, Joji Matthews, Culver James Kamai, Chris Wagner, Teencho37, Mathwiz97, Zach Penrith, Greg Greenwell, Cherryboy Writer, Car Keys, Valkion, Mickey Stopwatch, Akai Kuroba, Kieran Rice, Raymond Tifi, Indigo, Lord's Liquid Bacon II, Otaku Manboy, Shoko Asahara, Trey Allen, and all of my other patrons in helping to enable and improve this content.